Welcome back, friends, to Stories Round the Table with Hudson and Joni. This week, settle in for a particularly intimate conversation. While Joni usually guides the tales, today, the microphone turns primarily to our very own Hudson James. Get ready to hear directly from the heart of the country singer and co-host as he shares personal updates and, most excitingly, offers a sneak peek into the new music brewing from his songwriting soul. Joni will be right there, lending her insightful ear and asking the questions you've all been waiting for. So, pour yourself a drink, find a comfortable spot, and join us as Hudson opens up about his latest creative journey, right here on Stories Round the Table.
In the heart of country music's timeless tradition, where stories are woven into the very fabric of our souls, gather round the table for a journey into the heart of the songs, the singers, and the stories that define our world. Welcome to Season 2 of Stories Round the Table with Hudson and Joni. Bringing you these unforgettable conversations, Hudson James, executive producer, co-host, and singer-songwriter.
Hi, I'm Hudson James, and I'm incredibly passionate about sharing these stories with you. Season 2 delves deeper into the world of country music, revealing untold experiences and invaluable information. Grab a seat and your favorite beverage, and let's all enjoy the show together.
And I'm Joni. Hudson and I are very excited about Season 2. We're going to introduce you to some wonderful new guests who will share their story about where they came from, how they got their start, and what inspired them to follow this incredible journey in country music.
Joni Harms, executive producer, co-host, and singer-songwriter, a true icon of Western music. Her impact on the genre is undeniable. She's not just a singer, she's a storyteller, a keeper of the Western spirit. Her contributions have been recognized by the most prestigious organizations in Western music. The International Western Music Association has honored her repeatedly. In 2003, she received both Female Vocalist of the Year and Song of the Year, culminating in her induction into the IWMA Hall of Fame in 2020. More recently, in 2022, she was awarded the Team Penning Co-Write Songwriting Contest Award. The Academy of Western Artists also recognized her exceptional talent, including naming her Entertainer of the Year in 2002. Jimmy Murphy, executive producer and music manager. Vernell Hackett, public relations director and journalist. In the heart of Nashville's vibrant music scene, she's a fixture, chronicling its history and shaping its narrative. Her byline appears in respected publications, including American Songwriter, and she has contributed to major news outlets like Reuters. From covering the CMA Awards to in-depth artist interviews, she's a respected voice, capturing the essence of the music, the stories behind the songs.
Hello, listeners. This is Vernell Hackett, your Public Relations Director. We've got a fantastic lineup of guests this season, and we can't wait for you to experience these authentic conversations. Get ready to pull up a chair.
Jonathan Svoboda, social media executive. And Brett C. Burks, producer and singer-songwriter. Join Hudson and Joni as they sit down with the legends and the rising stars, sharing the tales behind the tunes, the laughter, and the tears that shape the soul of country music. Produced by the Story Weaver Studio.
Hey, Hudson, you know what? This is a special episode today because I get to interview Hudson James, my co-host for Around the Table with Hudson and Joni. And, I think our listeners are really going to enjoy hearing some of the background and your stories around the table today. And so, Hudson, I've been listening to your latest recordings, and I just love. It's the style that I love, and we both love, and that we kind of feature on this show. So it seems totally fitting to maybe share some of your music today, or at least how people can find it. And I would just love it if you would start kind of from where you grew up and how you fell in love with country music in the beginning days.
Well, I grew up in New York City, so country music isn't exactly what you'd think about with New York. but I was raised very traditional German, and I don't know. I remember turning on the radio as a kid, and country music was just it. Don't get me wrong, I liked a little bit of pop, and I liked a little bit of every type of music. But country was just, I don't know, it had that storytelling of a simple life. You're not worrying about all the traffic, all the people, all the chaos, and everything that's going on a day-to-day basis. It sounded like such a simple life. And even though I loved growing up in a major city, and I still love living in a major city, just that simpleness of life just always was appealing to me, even at a very, very young age, around 8 or 9.
So who were some of your influences that you can maybe just list a few?
Oh man, Mark Wills for sure, Patty Loveless, Susie Boggess, Reba, of course. I mean, you can't get through the 90s without Reba. George Strait was a huge influence. It just simple music about, like his song Check Yes or No. Such a simple song. It's about two kids in school, and they're passing notes between each other in class, and it's just a simplicity of life that you
Yeah.
don't necessarily get when you're growing up in a major city.
But that simplicity is what makes people want to sing along and turn it up and relate to it so easily. So, absolutely, you named off several of my favorite writers or singers actually, and a lot of those folks do write some of their own music. But what made you start wanting to try to write your own songs?
Writing actually just came up very recently. When I was with a small label back in my early 20s after college, we used songwriters. They made the songs. I never really thought writing was something that I could do. But after COVID and some personal issues that we'd went through in the past year or so, you start to, maybe grab a bottle. You start reflecting about everything that's happened, and you just start writing it down. And then you realize, you know what? No one else may care about this story, but I like it.
Well, it's such a release, isn't it? I mean, to be able to share your thoughts on paper and then add music to it. I mean, it's just a real way of putting your feelings out there. And the cool thing is just like that check yes or no that George Strait had that you were talking about. Other people, you find that other people can totally relate to that. We're all human. We all, have some of the same kind of things that we deal with, our feelings and our passions. And it's so if we can put it out there that maybe somebody else that doesn't have the ability to write it down, they can latch on to what we did and kind of release their feelings through what we did.
Yeah, and then I came up with one just recently. It's on one of my last albums, Hard Times, and it's about dealing with the economy and how expensive things are really getting. And you get to the register and you're like, uh-oh, I got to put the milk away, or I got to put the cheese away, or I got to put this away because I can't make it to the register with what I have in the cart. And,
Yeah.
That's reality. That's what people are dealing with right now. And
Sad but true.
it's sad, but it's true. And, we're all dealing with it. So why don't we sing about it? Why don't we talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you're quite a little chef. I understand. I mean, we talk about that sometimes when we're doing the show, what each of us have made for dinner. And so when you are putting all these things in your cart, what's one of your very favorite things to go home and cook?
I did grow up in a German restaurant, so German food is probably always my go-to. I love a pork tenderloin with some homemade fries and just simple. You take like a pork loin, you cut it thin, you pound it out, bread it with some milk and some pinko breadcrumbs.
Isn't that like a schnitzel?
Yeah, it's a schnitzel, but it's on a sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
And you just put some mustard, pickle on it, some onion, simple as that.
Sounds pretty good. I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to doing some cooking with you sometime because I also love to do that. But also I think it's just kind of a fun thing to share is when you first contacted me, I got an email, folks, from Hudson, and he just said, "Would you be willing to do an interview with me, Joni? Because I love the '80s and '90s music. That's some of my very favorite style and era of country music. And so I was excited about it, and we chatted and set up that interview, and you were just starting the round the table. In fact, I don't even know if the title of the show had come about yet. You just told me you were doing a podcast. And so we set up the interview. You interviewed me. We had such a blast talking and going back and forth with different stories that a day or so later, you said, and called me again, and you said, I'm going to throw something kind of wild out there. And you invited me to co-host the show with you. And it has just been one of the most amazing journeys so far. So much fun. Whatever made you decide you wanted to do that?
Well, before COVID, I'd done a lot of concert promoting, and the money was great. But when COVID came in, it knocked out any kind of live performance, and we had tried to do a few more shows, but every time we would do a show, another strand would come out, and we had to cancel and postpone, and it was just a chaotic mess. And when COVID was starting to wrap up, I'm like, well, what am I going to do now? I can't do concert promoting. It's too much of a risk. Even if COVID's gone now, it could be back in 6 months, and I could lose that show again. So I didn't really want to go into that again. And I'm thinking, well, what can I do from home? I'm not really a work from home type person. But I thought, well, a podcast would be really kind of cool. Doesn't really cost any money to do it necessarily. And maybe people would really like to hear about the country music business itself and hear from some of these singers. And so that's what really got me into the idea of the podcast, because one, financially, it doesn't cost anything. Two, I can do it from my home. Three, if nobody's interested, well, then I guess I don't do it. And if people are, then hey, I might have something going.
Absolutely. And the neat thing about it is the concept, because I don't really think there's any other ones out there quite like what you've started and invited me to be part of. It's more about a lot of it is behind the scenes. I mean, certainly we talk to artists and get their stories, but what's been fun about ours is we talk to the producers, the road managers, the songwriters. It's all kind of behind the scenes stuff that the listeners to our show, our podcast, don't really even know much about, and so it's really interesting for them to hear some of these kind of behind the scene things. And you getting back into songwriting just now, or starting to do it, you're doing a fantastic job. I mean, I'm super impressed. So you must have really just kind of been listening really closely to these songs that you were mentioning through the years, and so it must have kind of just came naturally to you when you started trying to write it down on paper, your own style of songs, or what what did you do first? Did you try to come up with a melody? Did you just start writing some ideas? Tell some of these folks that are newbies to they want to write something down, but they don't really know how to go about it.
Well, I didn't really know how to go about it either. I mean, I know there's certain ways you're supposed to type it on a piece of paper, and so many lines you're supposed to be for a verse, and so many are supposed to be for a chorus, and so on and so on. But I really didn't know what I was doing either. I just, like I said, I might grab a beer or a cocktail and listen to some 90s music, listen to some songs that really relate to me, and then I take how that song has influenced maybe something that's happened to me, maybe a situation in my life that has happened. And, I'm not going to take their lyrics or their style, but listening to their music for an hour or two beforehand, and now reflecting on what's happened to me, that really helps to keep the story plot going, because you can always reflect back on a certain song and be like, okay, well, they did the story this way, and I'm not really doing a story here, so I need to fix that. And you almost write it like you're writing a small little book or a small little story. And at least that's what I've done.
Absolutely. That's good advice. I mean, and there's been times, it sounds crazy, but sometimes I'll get the beginning going and not know quite where I'm going. So then I'll go to the end and I'll write the end and then write backwards, because, you're right. It is a little story. And so sometimes you have to have the whole, because you only got 2 to 3 minutes to share a song. That's all the time you get on radio for a DJ to play your song. And so it's a challenge, isn't it? I mean, to really get a whole story told in that amount of time.
Absolutely, because you don't want to be repetitive, but you also need a little bit of repetitiveness in there to make it catchy.
The chorus.
Yeah, absolutely. But you don't want too much because then it just sounds like the whole song's on repeat, but you also want to get your point across. And that's what I've always loved about country music. And I'm sure this might also apply to all genres. And I do listen to a lot of different stuff. Josh Groban is one of my most favorite artists. But, you only have that really short amount of time to get your point across.
That's right.
But when it comes to music, you can share so much in 3 minutes or less.
Yeah. Well, if it was easy, everybody'd do it, Hudson.
Well, that is true. That is true. I can't say that it's easy. You either can do it, I guess, or you can't.
Well, I am absolutely over the moon with your new stuff. Why don't you, just to make sure, I know they can probably look up Hudson James, but tell them, some of the best ways for them to find you and your music. And then, I want to also talk a little bit where you think country music is going, because it's definitely making some changes. And so, if you don't mind, share some of that. And what is there? Have you got like a favorite new song that you've written and have out? Or, I mean, they're all good, in my opinion.
I really like the ones, and I've got several out now, where I talk about New York and simple country life. Those are really my favorites so far. As in for finding my stuff, well, that's pretty easy. HudsonJames.net is an easy way to find it. Then also, if you just go to Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, just type in Hudson James, it's going to be there pretty easily.
Okay, and they can download there. Back to you saying the simple life in New York. I think we need to ask you to go into a little bit of detail on that, because a lot of people, including me back before I had the chance to go perform and visit New York, people would say something about that. And I thought, are they joking or what? Because people think of New York and all they think of is the, crazy, busy lives of what you see on TV. And you don't really realize there's a whole different side of New York.
Yeah. And so growing up there, you pretty much just stay in your own little neighborhood. I think growing up, I was only probably ever going more than 5 or 6 blocks from where I lived. And so the little neighborhood did kind of feel like a small town, a small little area, because you go to the same corner stores, you go to the same cafes, you go to the same little bodegas and things of that nature. But you're also intelligent enough to know that you're not in a small town.
Well, interestingly enough, when I was invited to perform at Carnegie Hall, it was with a group of pretty much Western music artists and poets. And so we did, I think it was Cowboys Come to Carnegie. And I was really worried in a way about how that would be received. I didn't know if there'd be anybody that would show up. I didn't know what they would think of that kind of thing in New York. And I mean, they absolutely loved us and made us feel so welcome. It was unbelievable. And then, of course, singing at Carnegie Hall is like the Grand Ole Opry. I mean, the acoustics and things in there are absolutely amazing. But I mean, even walking around New York City with cowboy hats and cowboy boots on, people were stopping us saying, welcome to New York City. We're glad you're here. It was something else.
And I think, I think that's a lot of the fact that, people perceive New York as pop, rap, and things of that nature. And they don't think about when you're growing up there, you are still kind of raised in a small atmosphere. But on the same token, we don't get a lot of the cowboys, cowgirls, the cowboy music, because too many people do perceive it as just some major city and that's it. But New York is so unique. You have so many different elements, and it's such an international city that you do get a lot of stuff. But then again, country music doesn't really come that often. So when it does, it's kind of a rare treat. You know, I
How?
think I think when Garth Brooks did Central Park, he had the same fears that you had going to Carnegie Hall. No one's going to show up. This is a major city. I know I'm Garth Brooks. I get it, blah, 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 but no one's going to show. And, I watched an interview before he went on to do that show, and he was actually really nervous at the fact that nobody would show.
Yeah, yeah.
Sold out
I
like 500,000 people or something like that.
Well, I know the first day we got there, speaking of treats, we all were hungry. And so we went out to this really nice restaurant and had some hors d'oeuvres, had a full meal. I think I had a glass of wine with dinner. And the bill never came. Bill never came. And finally, I think one of the guys said, we're probably going to wrap it up. We got some stuff to do for the show tomorrow and all that kind of thing. And they said, oh, no, it's on the house. Welcome to New York City. And I mean, who'd ever thought that there? Not me, but that's what happened.
I would.
Are you thinking that getting out and doing some touring might be one of the next chapters in the Hudson James book?
Well, I haven't done a live concert since Jesus was alive, but I might have to, I suppose. I just might have to.
Well, maybe we can go out and do some things together. I don't know, because like I said a little earlier, where do you see country music going? Do you ever think that it's going to get back to that music that, the 80s and 90s that it seems like a lot of people still like so much?
I actually do think it will. I mentioned to you a few times, and I think I mentioned it in a few podcasts before, but I had a few conversations with Billy Dean in person and on the phone. And I mean, everybody knows who Billy Dean is. Amazing, amazing guy, an amazing artist, and such a genuine guy. But he made a very valid point a few times when I spoke with him. And if you think about that psychology, it really does make sense. But, the new generation, people that are between 20 and 30 and maybe pushing to 35, when they grew up, they grew up to their parents listening to country music, and their parents were listening to the 80s and 90s. And as much as we don't want to admit that we want to listen to what our parents listened to, we all do it. And, so a lot of that younger generation, for several different reasons, are going to the 90s style. Whether it's a new artist or a 90s artist, they just want that style. They don't want this cut and paste and reverb and all this different stuff that's going on in music in general in today's world. And nothing to say anything negative about new country music. It's great. It's good. I love it. But on the same token, it's not the same. And a lot of these younger people are going to those 90s artists.
Well, and you have to have a style. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, I think one of the things I've always personally admired, like with the George Strait, is you can buy another album of one of his many, and pretty much know what you're going to get. It's going to be some shuffles and some swing, and it's different songs, but same style.
Yeah, and that's very valid. And I've noticed with a lot of artists that even started maybe in the late 90s, early 2000s, they stuck with that 90s vibe until 3 or 4 records later. And I won't mention names, but, once they switch over or change their style, sure, they've already made their money. They've already made a fan base. But in the same token, they don't have as much success anymore.
Well, you might gain some new fans by stretching it out a little bit different style than what you've been doing, but you're probably going to gamble that there's going to be some of them that are disappointed, and you're going to lose some fans as well because they got to really liking who you were with what they heard you doing, and so you go switching that up on them and getting too pop or something, and I guess you're gambling on maybe there's some of them that can do it. Look at Dolly; she can do anything. Reba's done a lot of different styles, but personally, I would never want to stray too far because this is who I am. This is the type of music I do. That's kind of like who George is. Alan Jackson. There's several. Even the good old Merle Haggard. There was never very far far from what you expected from him. He wouldn't let you. I mean, wouldn't let you down. You go and get a new album or go to his concert. It's going to be the music that you would expect him to do.
Yeah, and you know, I did go to college for music and theater, so I do appreciate all kinds of music, and I'll listen to Matchbox 20, Savage Garden, Josh Groban, and all sorts of different genres. But as an artist yourself, you really can't do the crossover. As much as I love Amy Grant's music, the same philosophy goes with her. You know, she had started out as a Christian artist. She went to pop. And when she wanted to come back to Christian, she just wasn't well received on both sides of the coin.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
it's disappointing because, you know, she's just trying to express who she is as a person.
Yeah.
But on the same token, you just can't do it. It is what it is. It's the business. I mean,
Well, I think you have a wonderful style about you. Don't stray too far, Hudson. I think you're on your way to gaining lots and lots more fans. I'm so glad we were able to kind of just visit about you today rather than everybody else. We have a lot to come on this new batch of artists and people that we're having on the podcast. We're lots more to go. But could we possibly close out our little interview and chat with you today with maybe one of your songs? I don't know. Maybe you can introduce it. Tell me if you wrote it or who wrote it, how it came about, and just kind of close out with that. And again, you're a fantastic artist. I'm proud to be working with you, Hudson, on the podcast, and also very proud of who you are as a songwriter and artist. So, again, thanks for letting me interview you today.
There's a fork in the road, and the signs point both ways. One paved and smooth, the other lost in a haze. They told me one direction, said it's the safer bet. Subway rumble fade. Neon signs are buzzing low in this honky-tonk haze. Another night of memories from those golden days.
well, first I have to thank you so much because that is such a great statements from such an amazing artist yourself. And it's truly a pleasure to hear you say that. As in for one of my recent songs, I would say The Road You Chose. It's probably one of my favorites that I've recently written. And the money from concert promoting was amazing. Really good. But you get caught up in that. And no matter how much you want to say that you won't get caught up in the money, it's going to happen. You know, I was raised very modest. We weren't raised to think we had a lot of money. You choose is really right there. You can choose to go right back to that same lifestyle of making everybody tons and tons of money, but there's no love in those relationships. It's just all about money. Or you can choose to go your own direction. And who wants to follow you can follow. Who doesn't. But it's the road you choose that's going to determine the path of your life.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you may be choosing the direction that everybody is telling you not to do, but what's their motives behind it? Why are they telling you not to choose that other road?
Right.
And
Well,
I don't like to think that people have motives when they do stuff. I like to think that everybody's being genuine, but unfortunately, in those situations, they're probably not.
Well, and there's a whole lot of descriptions for wealth or being rich. I mean, I certainly don't have abundances of money, but I can't think of a career or a way to have spent my life any better than what the road that I did choose. It's been staying true to who I am, doing the music that I want to do. And, the few people maybe that is touched has been about as, wonderful of a pay that I could have ever asked for. I mean, that makes me so fulfilled inside for that. So, really, how much is enough? You don't need to have all kinds of money to be wealthy. That's for sure.
No, and looking back at how things were and how things are now, my income is definitely less than it used to be.
But you're probably happier.
But my relationships are genuine. My friendships are genuine. My connections are genuine. And, I've noticed when you choose the path that your heart is telling you to choose, it's generally the path that most people are telling you not to take. But in the song, The Road You Choose, you have to think about your own heart, your own passions, and your own dreams. And you're not going to disrespect the people that are telling you something different. But you have to realize that it's your life, your choice, not theirs. They're going to continue living their life no matter how they're already doing it anyway. And the road you choose isn't going to impact them at all.
That's right.
But it is going to impact you. And that's the most important part that you need to think about. And that's what that song is really, truly about.
Well, let's play it, and let's, that's all wonderful advice. I think that the folks that are tuned in to this podcast are going to have smiles on their faces and really give some thought to what you just said and are saying in the song. And much continued success to you, Hudson. You're a great person.
Well, thank you so much, Joni. I truly appreciate you taking the time to do this today. Been kind of a weird twist for the podcast, but hey, what the heck?
Absolutely. No, it's great. And lots of fun around the corner, folks. Lots of great shows coming up. So please spread the word to your friends and family about Stories Around the Table with Hudson and Joni, because we got a lot more to come.
Oh yeah, this season is only going to get better. Only going to get better. Vernell, I have to give hands down and a clap to her because she's bringing so many great artists. I remember in my early 20s, I had met the Oak Ridge Boys when they were coming out from a concert. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and was able to get an autograph right as they were going on their bus. But never did I ever think that I would get to interview Dwayne Allen of the Oak Ridge Boys.
Well, that's just one example. Yes, thanks so much to Vernell and all the folks that have contacted us about being part of our show. We really like to go a whole bunch of different directions and show what really makes this music business work. And so, yes, the whole team of Stories Around the Table that makes it work. I'm having the time of my life, and the nice comments that we're getting from our fans and folks who are tuning in, keep those coming. We appreciate it so much. And just keep following along with us and spreading the word.
And
well, thank you again. And like I say, we got lots more Stories Around the Table, but folks, don't miss out on finding some of Hudson's music and downloading it and listening to it. And don't forget, Joni Harms has got lots of music out there. We both love what we do. We both love writing and singing, but we also love doing these interviews and sharing stories around the table with y'all. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Thank you again so much, Joni, and I hope you have a great afternoon.
You do the same.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us for Stories Round the Table with Hudson and Joni. We hope you enjoyed this glimpse into the heart of these stories. If you loved this episode, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to connect with us on our website, storiesroundthetable with hudsonandjoni.com. We'll see you next week, ready to share another story.